Ayan na! Kamusta na kayo dyan? Nagpakita tayo. Sasabihin nyo na naman, delayed reaction ako. Pasensya na, sabi ko magpahinga tayo, magpa-freshen up tayo bago tayo mag-analysis dito sa Presidential Forum kahapon. I liked it very much. And of course, may no-show na naman at mukhang nag-cooking show na lang yung isa na naman at mas prefer talaga yata nung isang candidate, yung mga one-on-one, medyo showbiz, medyo ano. But in fairness naman sabi nung isang K-rated ba yan, they raised some serious questions. So, tignan natin yan and I-assess pa natin yan separately. But of course, this presidential forum was very, very, very important. And actually, gusto ko yung format niya na straight to the point, yung candidates, harapin mo yung panel at boom, 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 tanungin ka ng mga mahirap na tanong. In fact, yung ibang candidates, first question pa lang, boom, yung tanong eh. Si Lenny nga yung internet connection niya, mukhang hindi ganun ka... pero in fairness, magandang sagot. Hindi magandang internet connection, pero magandang sagot. Si Calyodi rin, very forceful yung pasok. Senator Manny Pacquiao, na-sustain niya yung confidence, yung projection of self-assurance, at saka yung conviction niya laban sa corruption. Si Isko Moreno, mukhang nakinig sila dun sa advice ko na, yung in public advice ko na, unsolicited advice. Magbarong ka na, sir. Magbarong ka na. Medyo mukha kang masyadong bata. Mas maganda medyo magbarong ka para makita naman medyo presidentiable. So, kita natin si Isko talagang nakabarong and projection of leadership and all and mature statesmanship. Although yung first tanong pa lang hirap sa kanya yung issue ng yung 50 million na natira dun sa campaign donations in the last electoral cycle. And then of course kay Senator Ping Lacson, mahirap din yung tanong sa kanya. In fact, binalikan yung issue ng parang for a while na parang almost parang fugitive siya na nawala siya for a while during time of Arroyo and yung legality kung tama yung ginawa niya. Tsaka yung mga yung kanyang claims na never siya tumanggap ng any kind of bribery, etc. So binalikan talaga yung mga issue na yan. So I like the panel discussion. Yun lang medyo manel siya, purong lalaki. At sa ibang bansa, bawal na po yan. Bawal na po yung mga panel na purong lalaki lang. No? So, yes, maganda yung host, maganda na yung may babae, si Karen Davilan dun sa program, sa organization and all, but sana naman dun sa mga panel talks, medyo may gender balance na tayo, lalo na ang dami natin mga galing na journalists, political scientists, experts na pwede magtanong dyan or civil society leaders. Pilipinas pa, di ba? Napakalakas pa naman yung ating mga kababaihan, no? Strong women tayo. So yun, so balikan natin isa-isayin natin yung mga candidates. Analyze natin, nag-notes talaga ako, hindi ito yung mga pa-vlogger na chismis lang na yung praise lang dun sa candidate nila. Una-una kay sige na nga. Doon muna tayo sa bad signal. Sige. Sa bad signal kay Lenny. Ayan. Sige, wag na. Hindi, let's just go with the na lang. Yung flow. Sige, habol. Si Pacquiao. Ang interesting kay Senator Pacquiao is parang ang emphasis talaga niya yung issue ng fiscal consolidation Lalong-lalo na yung emphasis sa mga non-tax revenues ng gobyerno. At kung tinanggal natin or binawasan natin ang husto ng corruption na parang lumala in recent years, paging tatay, hello, Farmali, kamusta kayo dyan? Kung sana ma-cut natin corruption, di sana mas maayos yung magiging revenue stream ng government at pwede natin supuan yung issue ng budget deficit sa ating gobyerno At interesting, tinanong din sa akin quite a difficult question you could say doon sa isang no-show yung issue ng 100 billion pesos na hindi pa na sa $2 billion. Actually some estimate I saw more 4 to 6 billion. But anyways, na hindi pa na-kolekta na ill-gotten wealth anong dapat gawin dyan. So Manny Pacquiao was very clear, kahit sino man yan, para sa gobyerno dapat para sa gobyerno ang galing sa gobyerno. So yung PCGG daw, palakasin talaga niya yung Presidential Commission on Good Governance. So in fairness sa kanya, very clear siya, consistent siya dun sa stance na he has to strengthen yung mga institution in charge of making sure na supuin talaga yung issue ng corruption. Now, may raise na medyo controversial sa kanya yung issue ng ayuda kasi nagbibigay daw ng support at ayuda si Manny Pacquiao and some people are not very impressed with that and for them that contributes to yung culture ng handout At yung expectation ng voters na kung ikaw talaga ay viable candidate, mag-handout ka. So in a way, this may indirectly contribute to the culture of corruption, no? Yun yung claim ng ibang critics. Pero technical yung sagot ni Manny Pacquiao, di naman daw nagsimula yung formal campaign period at once na magsimula yan, hindi na siya magbibigay ng pera or ayuda or something like that because that will technically violate yung mga campaign rules, no? But I think it didn't go into to the heart of the issue kasi kung gusto mo talagang ayusin itong problema ng corruption, you have to make voters have a different relationship dun sa mga politiko, no? Na hindi tingin nila sa mga politiko ay golden goose, no? Kasi kung ganon, ang tingin din ng politiko sa mga voters, alam mo na, diba? At ang tingin din nila sa gobyerno ay mas malaking golden goose, no? So, you have to do something about that culture, no? So, in a way, yung kritik kay Senator Pacquiao is that he's kind of contributing that culture of pamigay-pamigay. You're making the voters expect na politicians are there to give you help directly. So, nawawala yung aspeto ng nag-elect ka na isang tao para patakboyin yung gobyerno, para maging efficient yung government, para transparent at accountable yung process ng delivery ng public services. Yun po yung modern concept of the state. So, medyo pre-modern concept of the state and some would even say it contributes to the culture of corruption. So, I think that is an issue that Pacquiao will have to further explain on and actually internalize. Now, kay Lenny, medyo hindi inayos yung signal, medyo may nagka-cut-cut siya. Sana naman nagkaroon ng testing bago siya sumali. Sayang kasi, because in fairness, one thing I noticed with Lenny is that mas palaban siya, mas fiery siya, may pagka-fast talk siya dito sa sagot niya dito. Kaysa dun sa mga ibang interviews na kita ko, medyo mas mabait na Lenny mode siya. Except yun nga, yung dulong part ng fast talk ni Tito Boy. But dito, right off the bat, no, boom, 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 ganun na talaga si Lenny. Right off the bat, talagang palaban yung mga sagot niya. At very clear siya dun sa kanyang track record, passing anti-dynasty law, at saka yung kanyang concern with premature campaigning, at saka yung concern niya sa substitution. No? Ayun yung mga ginawang ayun yung ginawang adulteration of the process of substitution. Okay, let me make that a little bit more formal and diplomatic. Ayan! Maganda to, Minention niya yung issue ng runoff elections, which by the way, pansin niya, ipopost ko yan mamaya. I mentioned yung issue ng runoff elections. Mahalaga po yung runoff elections kasi it gives a chance for a coalition building and of course for the opposition or the administration to come up with a unity candidate para hindi kalat, no? Of course, and you make sure always majority ang nanalo sa election, hindi lang yung plurality. President Duterte didn't even win 40% of the votes, no? So, maganda yan, Hindi ko alam kung nabasa niyo yung sinulat ko sa runoff elections, but I think I'm the only guy or among few people who openly has been saying we need runoff elections. And I've written a column and article about that, among others, no? Yung political party reform, minention din niya, at saka yung dapat strengthen natin. Wag tayo, sabi ni Lenny, wag tayo magbulag-bulagan sa issue ng fake news and disinformation. Now, just to give you an update, meron pinasa, I think in Senate recently, I was interviewed by Vice News. So, pwede ko i-post rin yung link. Yung kailangan na mag-register ka ng identity mo, no? Na hindi pwedeng anonymous lang and all. So, I think sa SIM card and all of that. So, I think we're moving in the right direction kung saan you're pushing people to be more responsible with their online behavior and online, how they use their rights online, freedom of expression online, in ways na hindi inaabuso yung anonymity. At alam natin, maraming dyan inaabuso yung anonymity para gumawa ng mga troll farms. Alam natin dyan, established na po yan. Now, let me just emphasize this point kasi in fairness kay Lenny, she talked about yung issue ng People Council, no? At saka yung NAGA model. I think that is very, very important. Parati ko sinasabi, yung kulang talaga sa campaign nila, Lenny, is hindi masyado. I mean, of course, nagkaroon ng improvement ngayon, but I think throughout the years, yung medyo kulang is yung emphasis dun sa talaga the Robredo model, no? And yung Exhibit A dun sa NAGA ng participatory democracy. Now, I'll tell you this because you can find academic works by foreign students, by foreign scholars about the NAGA model. That's how successful and that's how progressive it is, no? May sinite din ako dyan sa mga aking mga works and articles yung NAGA model. So it's good to see that Lenny discussed this issue ng People Council, grassroots-driven participatory democracy, kung saan yung mga ordinaryong groups at civil societies ay pwede parang shadow government, no? Doon sa mga elected executive at saka legislative branches, no? Doon sa level ng yung on the very local government LGU level, no? Kasi doon mo sinisigurado na hindi yung tipo ng mga tao, bobotohin lang namin kayo, tapos bahala na kayo for the next 2 years, 4 years, whatever, 6 years. Ang mangyayari dyan is, bobotohin namin kayo, pero babantayin namin kayo. And we're gonna directly engage in the process of may tinatawag na participatory budgeting, among other key decisions na andun yung mga ordinary tao, pwede sila pumunta dun sa proseso, pwede nilang scrutinize kung yung mga inelect nila, matino yung ginagawa nila at hindi purong kalokohan lang, at pwede din sila, active citizens. Pwede sila maging active citizens in the sense na directly pwede sila magbigay ng inputs, no? So hindi kailangan na ikaw na-elect na isang barangay chairman or councilor or mayor para magbigay ka ng legitimate inputs dun sa paano dapat gagastusin, no, yung budget ng barangay, budget ng city hall, etc. No, so these participatory democracy models or micro models na meron tayo sa Naga, medyo na-mention yan, and medyo fiery with conviction. So I think it's important na mas may mention ng Lenny team yan in their overall campaign as their Exhibit A among others. Kasi ang issue kay Lenny is because she was not in good terms with President Duterte, medyo kapos yung budget niya as a vice president. She did a lot. She did a lot, but with very limited resources. But she also did a lot prior to becoming the vice president. And the Robredos have a huge legacy of progressive, participatory, democratic governance sa Naga. So parati ko sinasabi, this is something that has to be emphasized dun sa kanilang campaign. At hindi lang yung parang disente, mabait. Ang emphasis din dapat dito ay husay at yung accountable, no? At yung pwede talagang yung reachable, no? Accessible governance, compassionate, accessible governance, and competent governance. So I think yun yung mga dapat i-emphasize beyond yung general motherhood statements on dealing with dynasties, etc. But interesting. I was very pleasantly surprised to see you na mention yung issue na runoff elections because for some reason para sa akin shocking yan na wala tayong runoff elections. Parang common sense yan sa ibang bansa. Chile, pero nakita na sa runoff elections doon pa nanalo yung mga progressive candidates. Otherwise, alam nyo na yung mga pwede manalo, di ba? Yung mga pro Pinochet, pro Fujimori, actually anak ni Fujimori sa Peru. So yun. Now, let's go to Calyodi. Now, this is where this presidential forum became very, very interesting because meron kang Calyodi dito na wala ka dun sa mga iba. And dito nakikita mo natin na ano talaga yung added value kung meron kang kandidato na talaga galing sa sektor ng labor at galing talaga sa masa at meron talaga siyang long track record, 3 dekada in terms of mobilization on the ground at saka yung fighting for the rights of yung ating mga manggagawa at saka magsasaka, no? Now, dito nakita natin first question pa lang, boom, sa kanya yung issue ng NPA, no? Now, of course, alam natin si Calyodi ay progressive, medyo left-leaning, may mga tao na might misunderstand him or misconstrue him. Now, ang sagot niya is very matapang, no? Sabi niya, tignan natin yung mga legitimate issues na ni-raise ng mga NPA, mga ganitong groups. Kasi if this concerns social justice, yung lack of land reform among others, then dapat ayusin natin yan. Kasi, any standard, scholarly, data-driven study will tell you that the reason why ang tagaling insurgency dito sa Pilipinas, one of the longest, not the longest actually, medyo mas mahaba pa yung sa Indonesia, dun sa banda Aceh, is because of the conditions on the ground. You fuel insurgency when there's so much injustice on the ground. Alam natin, tignan mo, yung mga NPA na yan, hindi yan lumilitaw doon sa mga more prosperous, equitable parts of the country. Lumilitaw yan doon sa mga parte ng bansa na talagang grabe yung landlordism, grabe yung abuso sa mga magsasaka, grabe yung dynasties talaga, ibang level, di ba? Yung tinatawag ng mga experts na obese level of dynasties, hindi literally obese, but in a sense that andyan na lahat, kapatid, anak sa labas, lahat nandyan na sila sabay-sabay, no? So you have to deal with the root cause, no? So in fairness sa kanya, that was a very, very honest and I would say even risky answer, but yun ang conviction niya at nakita natin. Ito rin, nung tinanong siya sa kanya yung issue ng paano may balanse yung karapatan ng mga manggagawa doon sa necessity for making sure na meron tayong profitability, meron tayong high productivity. Ang kagandahan ng sinagot ni Calyodi dito is yung sinabi niya, wala tayong problema necessarily dun sa mga kapitalista if they want a partnership-based relationship with labor sector. Hindi yung exploitative, bossing relationship, right? So, may pagka-tripartite, social democratic ang dating niya sa akin kung saan, alam natin, yan ang sistema sa Germany, for instance. Yan ang sistema, yung partnership system, tripartite system, kung saan yung gobyerno will try to make sure to create the balanced, equitable relationship between capital and labor para they can work together for the national interest. So in Germany, that has been very, very successful in terms of making sure na both sides masaya and in a way contribute to Germany as the world's leading manufacturing exporting country, no, in terms of especially high quality manufacturing, no, hindi lang volume, of course panalong China dyan. So we see actually in a lot of European countries this has been successfully undertaken, no, equitable partnership intermediated by the government between the labor and the capital sector. So alam ko medyo parang ano yung pinagsasabi ni Darian yan, that's exactly my point. Buti nga finally meron tayong isang kandidato na in-emphasize mga points na yan. Kasi I know for many people, lang first time nila marinig yan, ay ganun ba? May ganun ba? So I think Calyodi raises some important question with conviction, and I think that could contribute to the enrichment of our national discourse na paano natin gawin na mas social justice driven at saka equitable yung ating economic system. Kasi hindi pwedeng mga employers lang parating bossing na they'll impose their their preference on the labor at parating kawawa yung ating mga manggagawa at saka yung mga, and alam din natin yung laki ng problema sa mga ating mga farmers, di ba? Grabe yung and yung rice tarification law, ano yung epekto. At tingnan natin mga quotes ni Cynthia Villar sa issue na yan. Nako, isa pa yan. Now, punta tayo sa next candidate. Of course, again, I can go on forever on this, but just skimming through the key points. Isko, ayan, si Isko, nakinig dun sa advice natin na, sabi mo, barong ka naman, sir, medyo, naman, kasi alam mo, to be honest, marami ako narinig, mga folks natin, from humble backgrounds and all, randomly conversation, sino ba to, ganun. Tapos pag pumuntang topic kay Isko, parang ay masyadong bata. Si Sara mas bata pa, kaya kay Isko 'yan, 'di ba? Tapos yung mga reaction nila, ay ganun ba? And then you could see talaga there na siguro masyadong bata yung dating ni Isko in a sense na siyempre expect ng tao pag presidente, medyo 'di ba? And of course, in the case of Bongbong Marcos, especially in the past, nung mas bata pa siya, and even more specifically in the case of Sara, well, yung mileage nila ay galing sa tatay nila, di ba? Walang ganun mileage si Isko, di ba? So he's really running on his own merits. So in this sense, I think I said, I know it sounds shallow, but I think it's better to project kind of a mature statementship and all. So okay yun, interesting na mga nagbarong talaga this time. At bagay naman, seryoso siya, and I think he was really ready to go. And then boom, yung first tanong pa lang, ang hirap sa kanya, tanong sa kanya yung issue ng yung 50 million na yung issue na na-raise dun sa interview ni Jessica Soho. At interestingly, what Isko did there was to kind of turn it into his own favor by framing it as, this is an issue of transparency in tax payment. And transparent ako. Inamin ko naman talaga may ganyan. At binayaran ko yung tax. Pumunta ko sa BIR. So he kind of turned it around. But I think the more fundamental issue, and I think this is what Isko should have emphasized more, is electoral finance reform. No, malaking problema yan sa ating bansa. Hindi natin alam talaga saan galing yung mga malalaking pera para sa mga advertisements, tens of millions, minsan billion ang ginagastos sa elections. Malaking issue yan. Kasi kung ikaw ay kumukuha ng million sa isang kampo, it's hard to expect you to not toe that comes line pag ikaw ay politiko, di ba? I mean, or at least there is that expectation, or there is that kind of twisted relationship there. So mahalaga na meron tayong more transparency at saka may cap din tayo doon sa election spending, and also kung ano yung natitira, saan dapat pumunta. Dapat ba ibalik yan sa donors? Dapat ba ibalik yan sa kaban ng bayan? Dapat ba di ba? Or pwede mo ba iuwi yan, di ba? Because that raises some questions, right? So yung electoral finance reform, I think, is an important issue. And I think yun yung term na dapat gagamitin ng Isko campaign whenever this issue is raised. And they say, yeah, we have no problem with that. So far, we followed the text of the law. We were transparent about it. I've been honest about it. At yun naman in-emphasize niya, nagbayad po tayo ng buwis, pumunta pa tayo sa BR. Pero yun nga, sinusupport po namin more forthcoming and more, I would say, democratic electoral finance reform. At malaking debate yan sa Amerika at ibang bansa. I'm sure we have to have some really reasonable discussion about that. Now, dun sa issue ng foreign direct investment, it's interesting that si Isko, he made it very clear na ayaw natin maging katulad ng mga ibang bansa like Sub-Saharan Africa kung saan ito may investor from China and then the next thing you know, parang ayun na, yung buong tao nandyan na, alam niya na, di ba? You know na the rest of the story, di ba? At yung iba, tawag nila dyan, new colonialism na. So, ang para sa kanya, we have to welcome foreign direct investments, lalong-lalo na, binuksan na ngayon. Binuksan na po binuksan na po yung mga critical sectors natin ngayon, yung mga telecom, etc. sa foreign investment. So, dapat sisiguraduhin natin na mauna yung ating national interest. So, I like the fact that Isko emphasized the point of national interest. Na hindi lang yung bukas tayo to any investment and all. Kasi for a long time, alam ko yung issue ng tao is, yung Pilipinas, wala tayong competition dahil mga oligarchs lang dito yung nag-control. But let's not forget, kung bubuksan mo naman ng ganyan, bara-bara lang, at mga questionable investors from abroad come in, that could even have worse implications for the country. No? So dapat sisiguraduhin mo talaga na these foreign investments do not have deleterious impact on sa ating national security, na yung ating critical infrastructure ay hindi hawak sa leeg ng mga ibang bansa, and to make sure yung national interest natin, it comes first. And I always say, ako taga Baguio ako, Cordilleras and all, na yes, okay, gusto natin ibenta yung ating mga mineral resources abroad. But one day, if you want to be manufacturing country yourself, you need those minerals. Saan natin kukunin yan? O kung uubusin lang natin yan, at dami pang illegal mining at kalokohan nangyari dyan. No? So we have to make sure that foreign investments really serves the interests of the nation and yung mga communities on the ground na most directly affected. And also, high-quality investment. High-quality investment. Hindi lang yung mga raw material, mining, mga ganun. We want investments that brings greenfield investments, long-term investments, manufacturing, tech, etc. At dito yung interesting, no? Na minention pa nga ni Isko yung Elon Musk, no? Yung Starlink system niya, at saka yung data analytics. It's good to see a candidate always emphasizing that we have to have data-driven approach to governance because that's exactly what we haven't seen under President Duterte. Yung data niya ay hindi natin alam saan galing, yung mayroon siyang drug list, mga ganun. That's not a 21st century style of governance. Naku po. Wag na, tama na. So I'm glad na medyo minention data, medyo minention yung cutting edge technology na pwede natin gamitin, including especially dealing with climate change issues. At saka pag may mga natural disasters, pwede tayo magkaroon ng real-time analysis, no? So, maganda yan. At, in fairness, i-mention din niya si MLQ, no? Manuel Quezon, kung saan yung loyalty to the people should always come first. It should be your North Star, it should be your moral compass, and it should precede and oversee and transcend, yung whatever partisan leanings na meron ka, lalo na si Isko kasi ang dami niya naging partido di ba? So he has to make sure na at the end of the day, eye on the ball, right? Eye on the ball, and that's the national interest if naging president siya. And lastly, kay Senator Lacson naman, generally my concern is this. Senator Lacson actually gives the most coherent, confident, really straight to the point answers always. General, comments ko lang first of all. No? But for some reason, wala yung moment of spark And I'm wondering why. I mean, is it because hindi siya kumakagat ng most controversial issues? But he kind of discusses controversial. Is it because he's not name-dropping the way he should name-drop? Is it because, I don't know. I mean, we can talk about this. But feeling ko lang, ito yung advice ko sa Lacson campaign is really pick an issue na has a kind of a audience impact. Kasi, okay yung sagot, mahusay ang sagot, talagang nakikita natin, siya yung pinaka-experience sa lahat ng candidates. I mean, if you look at it, he has the most experience of all of these candidates in terms of governance at the highest levels, as PNP chief, as senator, and also, yung track record niya in fighting yung mga corruption allegations under the Arroyo administration, kung naalala niyo pa yan, di ba? But for some reason, parang yung medyo kulang yung spark eh. And I'm just trying to understand where is the issue here. Kasi, we saw Bernie Sanders, really experienced politicians in other countries. They know how to rile up the crowd, no, by really going to the heart of certain very controversial issues at making a point of conviction. No? Katulad ng mga, kunyari, stance ni Calyodi, for instance, on some very controversial issues. So, in a way, no, parang si Calyodi has more spark dun sa mga ibang candidates. Even though, of course, the other candidates, especially Senator Lacson, gives very coherent answer at alam niya yung sinasabi niya, no. Nonetheless, of course, he was asked some difficult question, yung issue ng, yun nga yung tinasakan niya, yung biglang parang naging fugitive siya, no, whether talagang that was a violation of the law, avoiding arrest, etc. So that was a tricky issue. Honestly, I'm not sure that's something you can address in 1.5 minutes ba yan? So I like the format in the sense na may panel discussion. I didn't like that it was just a manual. I like the fact that medyo comprehensive yung topics at controversial issue na raise. No wonder may nag-no-show. But, yun nga yung mga ibang issue para mahirap talaga in 1.5 minutes yan eh. Now, I agree with Senator Lacson na yung digital bureaucracy issue. Digitization of the bureaucracy is very important. In fact, one of the first politicians I saw that emphasized this issue is yung mga gatchalian, no? And how that was very helpful. Kasi once you reduce human intervention, you increase not only efficiency, but also transparency and accountability in the system. So that's good. But I think, generally, yun nga parang biglang naging on the defensive si Lacson. Also when the issue of I think ni-raise din yung issue na once sinabi niya may nagpadala ng pera sa kanila tapos pinabalik na tapos minute niya pa yung tao, but siguro the critics would say bakit hindi mo na lang ni-report, no? Dapat ipakulong mo yan if that person wanted to bribe you, diba? But binalik mo lang yung pera. So and then I'm not sure his answer was really the most convincing you could give, though, no? But anyway, I think generally, Lacson, if you look at his performance, very consistent siya, very coherent, substance-wise, andun naman. Yun lang, medyo kulang sa spark, and I'm trying to understand, is it the way he talks? Is it the way he chooses topics? Is it because he doesn't name drop as much as he should? Let's see about that. Kasi mas fiery yung presentation ng ibang candidates. Even though the substantiation or the level of experience in government may not be as high as Senator Lacson. So I think that's where some tweaking can happen. But anyways, again, this is just constructive critique. It's not even a criticism. It's just a suggestion. At yun nga, sayang. Kasi honestly, ang ganda sana kung andun rin si BBM. No? Para naman, I think he can address some of the issues head on. And para naman medyo hindi pwede, yun nga hindi ka pwede mag-interview shopping lang eh. But it is what it is. Let's see dun sa commission debates ng COMELEC anong mangyari dyan. But for me, I'm generally very satisfied with the presidential forum. Sorry, medyo late ako in terms of responding to them. But yun nga medyo we have to take point by point, and there was just no time to do it tomorrow with my other obligations and podcast recording pa kami hanggang 10:30 whatever. No, actually, sorry, 9:30 etc. So yun. Anyways, may mga tanong pa kayo dyan. Ayan, hindi tayo fair tayo manamit ngayon. Diba, medyo tayo. Hindi tayo, bubulin nyo naman ako eh. Diba? Sinong lutang? Uy, kinover natin lahat Okay, ganun dyan. Ayan, salamat kay Ariel dun sa stars nyo. Meron na tayo pang bili ng iced tea. Di, masarap na iced tea. Ano yun yung sa yun? Anyways, dun sa yellow cup. Salamat, thank you. Sorry, wala yatang sense yung sinabi ko. Forget about it. Kamusta kayo dyan? Thanks, Marianne, for joining us. Ako ayan. Si Lara, from Japan. Konnichiwa. Ohayo gozaidamasu. Yeah, thank you for joining us. Ayan, may mga tanong pa kayo dyan. No, di ba, honestly, in fairness, sana andun din si Calyodi dun sa sa interview sila Tito Boy at saka Jessica So, to be honest. I think that's where this forum for me was even better in certain ways, to be honest. Mas inclusive. And nakita natin yung candidates. They justified their presence there, and all the candidates were much more fiery, especially Calyodi, especially Lenny. Isko nagbarong na. That's good. That's good. You have to see more of that, right? I mean, okay, it's good to have all the Adidas and T-shirt and all during campaign. Pero ito kasi iba eh. Di ba? Iba yung format, yeah.